It's the weekend, and that means there's interesting new metal to talk about. Welcome, metalheads. I'm the host of Heavy Metal Philosophy and writer for Metal Digest, John Barbas. It's the weekend. That means we got new metal albums, and I'm bringing you my top 5 favorites from this week. Plus, as always, at the end of the episode, this week's album art of the week. But before we do the top 5, let's talk about some of the big news from this week. And first up, we got a new collaboration with Boris and Uniform called Bright New Disease. If you're into that noisy experimental metal, you love Boris, you know what to expect from this one. Check it out. We also got a new album from Saturnus called The Storm Within. If you're into melodic death doom, can't go wrong here. Check this one out. And finally, before we get to the top 5, if you're a fan of Max Cavalera, then we've got a new compilation record from Nailbomb called 1000% Hate. Industrial thrash metal from the legendary Max. You know you want some. Now let's do the top 5. Coming in at number 5, we've got Black Denim Rage, and this is thrash metal from South Florida. The name of the album is Estado de Emergencia, and I'm cheating a little bit on this one because this isn't exactly a new album that got released this weekend, technically. This is the Spanish language version of the album State of Emergency that got released back in April. They released the Spanish version this weekend, so it is technically a release from this weekend, but it's kind of already an album that was done in English. I don't know. All I know is it sounds really cool, and I'm glad to shout it out. It's got this real punk rock sort of vibe to the vocal delivery, and of course also that Latin sound because of the Spanish and because of the cadence that is delivered in, but it's thrash metal. It's classic thrash, full on energy and headbanging. You'll know you'll like it if you listen to it. And I highly recommend that you listen to both the English and the Spanish version because it's kind of cool to compare and contrast. Kind of like that Opeth album that came out a couple of years ago that was both an English language version and a Swedish version. It sort of adds a new element to it. Check it out. Coming in at number 4, we've got Ritual Awakening with Yokai. They're from San Diego, and this is melodic death metal. And during the parts with vocals, the more songs for lack of a better term, it leans more death metal. But there's lots of instrumentals on here and lots of instrumental passages. And on those parts, it's a guitar showcase, full on mellow death, just all these sweeping melodies and atmospheres. And then when the vocals come back, it's back to brutality. You know I'm gonna like it like that. Number 4, check it out. Coming in at number 3, we've got Thy Catapult. I am certain I mispronounced that. Text will be on the screen so you can read it the way it's supposed to be. And as always, every band's Bandcamp will be in the description so that you can get an easy link to the album, which is called A Fooled. Again, pretty sure I mispronounced that. It's got the umlaut over the O, but again, links in the description. No matter my terrible pronunciation, this avant-garde metal from Hungary sounds amazing. If you like your Black and Death to be weird, a little bit rock and roll, this is the kind of album that I recommend for you. Check it out. Coming in at number 2, we've got Varmya with Ni Nas Vice. This is folk black metal from Poland. And this time where they're from is super important because there's a lot of Polish folk music on this. There's a lot of that Baltic sort of indigenous sound to it. On the one hand, it's black metal. There's aggressive guitar and abjection and screaming, but all over the place is this beautiful Eastern European singing and chanting and violin. It's a gorgeous record. And then sometimes it's ugly and heavy. I love it. I got access to this one early, but you know what that means? My review is already published on Metal Digest. Links in the description to all my writings. Highly recommend Varmya. Check it out. And hey, before we do number 1, if you love metal the way that I love metal, then you're in the right place because that's all we do here is talk about the best new metal every weekend, exclusively on YouTube, podcast on all platforms every Tuesday. And I just got off vacation, but there's no vacation from metal. I spent that vacation researching how I'm going to improve the show next, what more I can offer the community. You know you want to be a part of that, so hit all of those buttons that all the YouTubers ask you to hit. But most importantly, check these bands out. Hit like if you like any of them so it spreads the message far and wide. Now let's do number one. Coming in at number one, Creeping Death with Boundless Domain. This Texas death metal is one more of those bands that I keep raving about in this renaissance of death metal that we're currently living in. We've got bands like 200 Stab Wounds, Undeath, Tombstoner, Frozen Soul. Well, add Creeping Death to that list. There's so much great death metal happening right now. This next generation of death metal is groove heavy, and bands like Tombstoner and Creeping Death are known for adding quite a bit of hardcore into their death metal. Well, on this album, I really feel like Creeping Death leaned more towards the death metal side and less towards the hardcore, so you get a more ODSM sounding record, but it's modern and groovy like all of their counterparts. I love this one. You will too. Now let's talk about this week's album art of the week. This week's album art of the week comes from a show favorite, the band Psy from Japan. They just released a live album called Live from the Eastern Forces of Evil 2022. And check this art out. I love this Japanese character in a robe holding a decapitated head. You know, if you see this album cover in the record store, you're going to be curious about it and want to hear what's on it. That's what I'm talking about. That's good album art. That's what kind of stuff I pick every week. There we go. Love it. And that's all the stuff I love this week, but I want to know, what do you think about it? Do you like any of these bands? What did I miss? Shout out some ones I didn't list. It's always hard every week just to pick 5. These are my 5 favorite. What are your favorite? I want to know. But most importantly, read philosophy, listen to metal. I love you.